Oh my god.
I mean, I don't know what issues you're fucking having, but my episode number count has been on point.
Then how about you post the
we'll
episodes?
go back.
I'm going to punch you in the
We'll
throat.
go with 62.
Adam's apple throat
Here we
punch.
go. We'll go get my other book.
I'm going to scribble on the next page I see.
Heyo, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brotherhood Without Manners, your favorite full spoiler reread podcast of George R. Martin's A Generation Fire series, starting with the Game of Thrones. As always, I am your feeling better host, Zach, and this is my incorrigible brother, Nate.
What up?
And we talk about Game of Thrones here.
You
usually
didn't do a voice on your last intro.
I know. Well, the last one
you did.
There was because I was sick.
Tyrion. I know.
Yeah.
I know it was because you were sick because you had to take
Yeah,
that
I
running
had to
start.
do it. The little behind the scenes. When I was sick for Tyrion, I had to try it like 3 different times. The Ayo, because each time it was coming out like Ayo.
And then he got his running start, and he managed.
Yeah,
it
it was
you
good.
guys heard,
It was
but
good.
He couldn't do a voice then, so no voices. So there it is.
Well,
it's back.
that in itself was its own voice. It was my
okay.
normal voice, but that'll be the only time.
It's the worst one they had to endure yet.
Anyway, if you joined us last time, we weren't reading Tyrion. We were reading Catelyn 10?
Yes.
10, yes.
Good job.
Guessed it. And we were getting the other half of the battle that we had started in Tyrion's episode.
So they were 2 different battles,
well,
but the other half of the plan being executed.
It's all essentially like, this is like dynamic movie moment, like in real time. Somebody sitting there with a watch, like...
It wasn't the same
and
time.
go. It was.
No.
It was the exact same day, same hour, same minute, everything. No, obviously they were a couple days apart, but what I meant by the same battle is that the trick that happened and
was in 2 parts.
And it can be hard to pick up on your first read through that actually they're laying a pretty decent trap here, and sort of the intent of it is to capture Jaime Lannister. And so we get the whole bit of Rob's plan essentially, and they capture Jaime Lannister, and Catelyn asks for her children, her daughters, her husband, her brother, her father back, and Jaime was Jaime about it, so they put him in irons, and Theon thought that they had won a great victory, but both stoic, brooding Robb and ever-prudent Catelyn point out that they still got a long way to go yet.
Not to mention, Nymeria showed up in that chapter.
Yeah, Nate believes Nymeria may have been there. But I'm warming up to it more and more. I do think that's a possibility, especially with her wolf pack later.
So we're going to get a lot of that kind of theorizing here in this chapter, because this episode we are reading Daenerys 8.
We're jumping back across the Narrow Sea. So last we left Daenerys, Drogo had been wounded after they had taken...
But it was just a cut,
the city of the Landmen from Khal Drogo, and they took a bunch of slaves, but Drogo, had gotten cut on his breast, which had removed basically his left nipple and left a flap of skin, and a magi, Mirri Maz Duur, was introduced. Mirri Maz Duur was introduced and healed him, and much to the dismay
now,
of
just
many of the
Zach
Dothraki.
did finger quote magi, because up until this point, granted we're full spoilers, so she is a magi of some sort perhaps, but I have a lot to talk about that here shortly, and I'm sure it's been discussed before, but we're going to talk about it in our own way.
So Drogo was told to keep on this poultice that she had made him for 10 days, 10 nights, no wine, no milk of the poppy, and you should be all good. And we pick up now with Dany, and Dany's riding behind Drogo. The Khalasar is doing their usual travel for the day, and Dany's a bit behind Drogo, and she's fixated on the flies that are flitting about him on this brutally hot day.
Yeah,
the sun is just beating down on them mercilessly.
She's thinking about how she's seen them. These are blood flies. They're big things, big as bees. They're nasty, glistening, fucking... I've been comparing them in my mind to when we were kids. They were horse flies, big old things, but I feel like they're even bigger than those.
Nasty stings.
And now out here, I feel like there's these weird black and purple bee-looking fuckers that flit around us here.
Well, as soon as I read this, I decided that I'll be taking this for our D&D game, and when you guys are out in swampy, hot jungles, these are going to be the blood flies that come and get you. They're just obnoxious and gross. Because, Martin, and they filled Dany with dread, these blood flies, because they these blood flies drain men of blood, men and horse alike. They're bloodsuckers, and then they also lay their eggs in the corpses of dead things,
or in the dead and dying.
Yeah.
And so usually
so they're usually flying around the dead and dying.
I feel like while it hasn't been stated, similar to, a Grimm in Harry Potter or just ravens in general or those types of things.
It's an omen.
It's an omen of death,
And that's the dread she's feeling. Yeah, that's what I got as well.
She thinks about how Drogo hates these things.
Yeah.
And typically, even if there's one flying around, his hand will fucking Mr. Miyagi out and fucking snatch that shit up, and he'll let it buzz in his hand for a minute, which I'm sure a lot of us did that as kids with flies. I used to catch them and put them outside and shit. I don't like to squeeze the life out of them because that's gross, and I don't want that shit on my hands.
Quick shout out to Lost, because one of the grossest moments in it is Sawyer, my boy. He catches a tree frog that's really pissing him off, and he fucking crushes it in his hand. And I oh my god, that's just so hardcore, man.
Anyway, so he would snatch them out quick as a snake and crush them in his hand to where they were just a red smear. He hated them so much.
But now they flitted about Drogo closer and closer, but the Khal did not react. His eyes were fixed on the distant brown hills, the reins of his horse loose in his hands. Mirri Maz Duur's poultice had itched and burned, and he had torn it off 6 days ago, cursing her for a magi. He had an herb woman mix up a mud plaster instead and made him poppy wine as well, which he'd been drinking heavily the past 3 days. If not poppy wine, some other sort of spirit.
Now, and this is what makes me think that Mirri Maz Duur didn't have cruel intentions from the outset.
Agree, yeah.
She specifically told him, keep this on, sing the songs, even if the songs weren't sung. Put this poultice on. Do not drink.
I mean, Drogo's being a little bitch here to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, it burns, it itches.
That's it.
Obviously, I mean, we have the worldly view now of our modern medicine, understanding that burning and itching is a sign of the stuff healing. It's going to be uncomfortable as it heals because it's getting.
But she told him from the onset. He allowed her to work on him.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to go. You need to do these things.
And she tells him there will be pain, but do not drink milk of the poppy or wine. Yeah, it's going to burn and itch for a while, but this is what needs to happen. And I never really picked up on how brazenly he goes against what she said. He rips it off, has a new one made that's wet and soothing, cool mud, which isn't the same mixture she put on. Then he begins immediately heavily drinking, and that was one of the things she said. For 10 days, no milk of the poppy, no wine. And if it's not...
Well, because the only thing I can think of is, with modern medicine in mind, granted I'm dumb as shit when it comes to that because I'm not a fucking doctor, but I would imagine that's going to loosen the blood and move whatever's infection in him throughout his body even faster. So she has, at least an idea. And a few other things that I'll bring up later on. Just because
Mirri Maz Duur has some stuff to say on it herself, but yet Dany notes he hardly ate, and he thrashed and groaned in the night, and his face was becoming ever more drawn. Even Rhaego, restless and kicking in her belly, did not stir Drogo's interest as he once did. So I just imagine that to be Drogo's not boasting about his son as much as he was.
He's not even cooing over her.
Feel how fierce my son is kicking in the belly. He's just out of it.
Yeah, and so she sees one of the blood flies land on his horse's ass, and the horse swats it away with his tail, as another one lands on Drogo's shoulder.
Yeah.
And just starts kind of skitting about. And as that one's crawling on his shoulder, another one lands on his neck, and then starts crawling up his cheek into his mustache. And so as Dany sees that, she's like, something's up, because he hates these things, and there's two of them
closer to him.
And she calls out to him, and he doesn't respond.
He's swaying in the saddle.
She sees that fly on his cheek now crawl up almost into his nose and rest in that little crease between the ridge of the nose and your cheek, and it freaks her the fuck out, because this thing's about to crawl up into him, and he hates these things, so she knows something's wrong. So she reaches out to touch him, and he sways and tilts, and he falls the fuck off his horse.
Yeah.
The end.
Heedless of her belly for once, Dany scrambles off her silver and ran to him, which is significant in showing how much Drogo actually does mean to her.
So beyond that, I was thinking, maybe she hurt her baby right there. Like, heedless of her baby. She could have just jumped down. I mean, how do you get off a horse? I think most people slide down by their stomach at least somehow.
Yeah.
And so either that or she just fucking jumped down. And so that can't be good for the kid.
Yeah.
And
no, there's a lot in this chapter that can't be good for the
that's
kid.
it. And so I was thinking about that, like with how the baby's kicking currently. We know it's alive-ish in there, probably. Whether it's writhing because it's a scaly dragon beast thing, or because, it's just a baby ready to be born, but then her doing all this weird shit mixed with,
the weird shit.
The weirder shit.
Yeah. That was one thing I specifically was trying to pay attention to, is her baby's reactions, because I wanted to try to pinpoint, like, where it might happen, where this thing affects this baby negatively, either Dany or Mirri Maz Duur herself. And so, I was trying to pay attention for that. So she cried out, Drogo cries out in pain as Dany kneels down beside him, and he looks at her without recognition and just keeps gasping, "My horse, my horse." And she brushes the flies off of his chest, noting how hot his skin is. He's feverish. So the Khal's blood riders ride up, Kaholo vaulting from his horse and dropping to his knees beside Drogo. And Drogo just is moaning that he must ride.
Yeah.
He needs to
He's
ride.
still trying to get back up. And
Hago, still mounted, says he fell from his horse.
He fell from his horse.
And Dany says, "You must not say that. We've ridden far enough for today. We'll camp here."
And Hago is instantly like, "This is no place to camp," looking around. There's nothing, it's not a place. There's no protection. There's no water or food sources. It's just a shit spot that she's just demanding.
And Kotho, the winner, says, "It is not for a woman to bid us halt, not even a Khaleesi." And Dany repeats, "We camp here." Hago, tell them Drogo commanded the halt. My time is near, and I requested it. Kaholo bringing the slaves to erect the Khal's tent at once. Kotho, and he cuts her off, saying, "You do not command me, Khaleesi." And she goes on, "Find Mirri Maz Duur, bring her to me with her chest." And he glares at her. "The Magi," he spat. "This I will not do." "You will, or Drogo will hear why you defied me." And furious, he wheels his horse around and takes off, but Dany's confident he'll return with Mirri.
Right, so the slaves get her tent up and running, and the handmaids bring Drogo inside, and they lay him on a mat that's now been set in the floor in there.
Start stripping him.
And all he kept muttering the whole time was just, "No. No."
Which, I think it's pretty funny, because Dany notes she's saying this as if it's the only thing he can right now in his feverish state, but the first time she meets him, she asks him, "Is no the only thing you know how to say?"
Right.
And it's that breakdown of communication. They are being reverted back to their earliest stage in their relationship right here. But we're seeing the growth. Dany is now, at this point, about 9 months pregnant with his child. She's utterly devoted to him, whereas back when they had the breakdown of communication last time, it was more fear.
Exactly.
And so I just thought it was an interesting sort of pullback right before the end of their relationship. And so, they begin removing Drogo's clothing, and Dany posts guards outside, as she doesn't want anyone seeing Drogo this way. And Iroa, a lamb girl that Dany had saved, looked at Drogo and whispered,
"So
he dies."
I think that this might be the first girl.
That was
what I'm thinking. Is the way that it is meant to be taken. So Dany slaps her. Now, I get the emotional trauma she's going through right now. Her husband's dying. She's having birth. Like, all this crazy shit's going down. But for somebody that's so about rescuing slaves, like, first she said, "Get the slaves to erect the tent." She's done what she could. She did take her 100 or so there, but
no, she is a good person, but check your fucking privilege, Dany.
That's it.
It's, you're still ordering slaves around to do your menial
and so
tasks.
To see her just slap this slave, it's like, whoa.
Well, that actually, like, even I
think goes to emphasize how emotionally distraught she is. And so that's what it is. Like, I don't think it's her turning Viserys.
It's not a slave thing. It's not, "I'm better than you." This is straight up her, like, don't speak that out loud. Don't say that he's dying out loud, because I can't come to terms with that.
And she panicked. I get it. But.
It is intense, though, because until this point, we've only seen Dany strike out at Viserys. So the fact that it's this young girl that she's saved from rape, if it's one of the lamb girls.
So Dany says the Khal cannot die. He is the father of the stallion that mounts the world. His hair has never been cut. He still wears the braids his father gave him.
Khaleesi, Jiqui says. He fell from his horse.
And then Dany loses.
Yeah,
it.
trembling,
Internally,
she turns away. She knows what it means. This is the Dothraki.
The rule. A Khal who could not ride could not rule. And he fucking fell.
Yeah.
Like, no ifs, ands,
and
or
there's
buts.
no way to keep it secret. She'd seen it, as had his blood riders, her handmaiden, the men of her cause. There was no way it wasn't going to get out to the rest of the Khalasar that Drogo fell from his horse. And that's the one boo-boo in the Dothraki.
So Dany ignores them and their complaints.
We must
he
bathe
needs
him.
a bath.
Yeah.
A cold bath, because he's hot. He is fire in human skin.
Yeah.
And
so the slaves bring the tub, and the handmaidens begin to fill it, and Dany again demands to know where Mirri Maz Duur is. And as they're readying the tub, Dany undoes Drogo's braids, which is just such a symbolic moment.
Well, because even she points out that it's just like the night that he had first taken her, and that same breakdown of the communications.
And we get her absolute denial here as she's undoing his braid, laying his bells aside carefully as he would want them when he was well, she told herself. Just that refusal to accept that
exactly
he's not already past the point.
And her sweet little moment's interrupted by Aggo poking his head in, announcing, "The Andal is here!" And we know that the Andal is Jorah, because he's
she says,
white
send him
guy.
in, because she trusted Jorah. He would know what to do.
I really like that. Dany rises and tells Aggo to send him in. She trusted the knight. And there's going to be, I think that at this point he has grown fond of Dany.
Yeah.
And so any kind of retaliation or out-of-character remarks are purely as a disgruntled father figure, more so than a traitor who's trying to sneak.
Jorah gets bold.
Yeah, he does.
But he enters, and he says, talk goes all over the Khalasar. It is said that Khal Drogo fell from his horse. And so there we go. It's already spreading.
And Dany pleads for him to do something.
Help him. For the love you claim you bear me, help him now. So Jorah kneels down beside Drogo and her, and he says, send your handmaids away. And she does, with her throat tight with fear, and Irri heard the other girls out of the tent. And once alone, Jorah draws his dagger and delicately scrapes away the leaves and the dried mud on
So I wrote
Drogo's
down
chest.
this part here.
Yeah.
Sir Jorah broke the dry mud with his knife, pried the chunks from the flesh, peeled off the leaves one by one. A foul, sweet smell rose from the wound, so thick it almost choked her. The leaves were crusted with blood and pus, Drogo's breast black and glistening with corruption. Basically, it's saying that his chest it's dead. It's dying. The skin, the flesh, what's going on under there, he is...
We talked about it a little bit before recording. In the work that Nate and I have both done, you currently are still doing... It's called decomp. That's the
decomposition.
This is a decomp case, essentially. And decomposition.
And George Martin does an
Captures
absolutely amazing job of capturing that stench of decomposition that accompanies the decaying
the ammonia
of skin,
yeast,
this
sweet,
foul,
oddly,
and the thickness of it.
and how it hits you. Because Dany almost starts to gag and
that's it. It's just out of just this
as
wall.
soon as you move, the body and the sight of it too.
The black, glistening, almost marbling,
swollen,
where there's the white. It's just he paints a very vivid.
Clearly,
image.
Martin has seen a deceased corpse or two, or just done some extensive studying, because he absolutely perfectly captured the
death and decay that lies under that cake.
And and it never hit me until doing the job, and now with this reread that if I had read this book first with doing the job and just now, I would immediately be like, oh, he's dead. He's dead. He's dead. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
He's got
too.
Rotting, decaying skin on his chest. This poor dude is fucked. And so he reveals the gross, and Dany whispers no as tears are running down her cheeks, and
Jorah lays it
says,
out.
Your call is as good as dead, princess.
And Dany is just she can't. She takes Drogo's hand in hers, and she's like, "It was only a cut. He can't die." And she says, "I will not let him die." Jorah out loud laughs. I picture the hound's laugh, ha!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Khaleesi, or queen, that command is beyond your power. And he goes on to say that we don't have the time for you to grieve over him. We must go quickly before he dies.
And it hasn't even landed that he's asking them to go.
It hasn't even landed that
that he's going to
die.
Dead.
Yeah.
And so she says, well, where shall we go? And he says, well, Asshai. We're going to go to Asshai. From there, we can catch a boat. We can skirt down up to Pantos. Like, we need to just
Do you trust your cause? Will they come with us? Do you trust the men of your cause? And which I was actually surprised. And I think that, to me, is the most telling, that Jorah's fully on her side now. Because he's willing to,
get her away.
And accept the help of the Dothraki that are absolutely loyal to her. Like, will these strong young riders help you? Do you think you have their absolute loyalty? Because we need them. Like, if we're going to fucking do this, we need to go now, and we're going to need them to get the fuck out of this. Yeah. And so, and then, again, Dany gets a prophecy later on in the books about to go forward, you must go back. To go east, you must go west. Yada, 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 yada. One of the things is...
That's like her next chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them is to... what is it?
The shadows of Asshai.
Go forward, you must pass beneath the shadow, or something like that. And a lot of people believe that reference to Asshai. And so there's been a ton of speculation of whether or not Dany will be going to Asshai. I think Martin himself has actually commented on it, that he doesn't plan on putting any POV characters in Asshai.
To where we get to see
but we might get it in flashbacks or something like that. But do you think there is a connection with Dany and Asshai in any way? Like, I mean...
I don't think it's necessarily a connection between Dany and Asshai so much as the magic that Asshai is supposed to represent. This mystery and this dark, because everything we know of Asshai is just that: shadows and magic and mystery and dark. And we're supposed to assume that it's this evil, terrible place. The dragon eggs are from there. That's where the mage weavers are from. The blood mages. And so it's all sorts of crazy shit like that. But I don't know that she's ever going to make it there. Or have any reason.
I don't believe she will, but it just seems to me that it's calling to her.
I feel like Asshai is more of a red herring almost. Like, that's not what's being referenced there. I mean, I'll have to look more into it again. Yeah. Obviously, there's tons and tons of discussion about it
I just feel like there's something for Dany to learn in Asshai. There's some... And maybe that's Marwyn the Mage's,
or maybe it's referencing Quaithe and her relationship with Quaithe.
I don't see the need that she needs to absolutely go there, but I feel like there is some detrimental, and actually just saying Marwyn the Mage kind of just did it for me. I think that could be it, where there's some piece of information she needs from Asshai, and it needs to be delivered.
But she could potentially get it by Samwell Tarly, who's with Marwyn.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I believe at the end of Dance, Marwyn's on his way to go meet with
Dany. He 100%
and now knowing that he was in
Asshai, so maybe
trained Mirri Maz Duur, that it could be that exactly.
And so he could be bringing the
in Asshai, I learned some shit about dragons, and you're the last dragon lord queen.
This is what you need for.
This is what we need to do because shit's going ham. So yeah, Asshai with Dany. I'm always curious because Quaithe, I feel like, is diddy bopping around Asshai a lot, and so Dany is not sure if the cause of her, the men of her cause would come with them. But she asks why they should flee. I am Khaleesi. I carry Drogo's heir in my belly. He will be Khal after Drogo.
Yeah.
And Jorah frowns and says, Princess, you have to listen to me. The Dothraki will not follow a babe. It was Drogo's strength they bowed to, only that. When he is gone, there will be fighting amidst the coves, and this Khalasar will devour itself. The winner will want no rivals. The boy will be taken the moment he is born and given to the dogs.
Yeah, and the only reason, the only reason that it's that way and they won't just kill her and the baby is because she was a Khaleesi. And they do have traditions that she needs to go to Vaes Dothrak. Because the Blood Riders of, which we'll get a little bit more on later, the Blood Riders of Khal Drogo are required to escort the Khaleesi to Vaes Dothrak, and then from there, they have to join Drogo, so they have to die.
Yeah,
does that mean they go kill themselves, or do they go find a fight? They go find the biggest.
I think it's if there's a fight, but I think they're kind of once the Khaleesi's delivered, they're on a timetable, and I think if it comes to it, they will straight up seppuku themselves and just for the honor of my Khal type thing. But I'm pretty sure it would be, let's try to find a fight first and die that way. But yeah, she's terrified by the thought of her baby being given to the dog. So she hugs herself protectively and asks why. Why would they kill a little baby? And he says he is Drogo's son. The crones say he'll be the stallion who mounts the world. Better to kill the child than risk his fury in manhood.
Which leads her to thinking about her
brother. Well, the child kicks as if he hurt.
Yeah.
And like, fucking goddamn this kid. And
now
so,
that's, I mean, with the common of how common it is for a baby to be kicking.
Well,
but
every single thing we know of Dany is saying that this is not a normal pregnancy at all.
And yeah, so she starts thinking about how Aegon and Rhaenys, thank you.
Rayla?
I don't fucking. It's been a long day.
Yo, what up, Rayla?
It's not been. Rayla's a cool name that I just came up with, I think.
Yeah, she thinks of Rhaegar's children and what the usurper's dogs had done to them, which I just think it's funny that she's comparing the dogs of the Khalasar to like Tywin Lannister in the mountain. And...
So I also liked the idea of saying the dogs that did it and the Hound. You think, the Mountain's the one that actually did it. His brother is the Hound, almost like he's getting this reputation as well for...
And yeah, dashing the infant's head against the stone wall, that was the way of men. They must not hurt my son, my cause, and Drogo's blood riders.
And Jorah cuts her off and is like, no, like, you need to understand. The blood riders, they are done once Drogo's dead. They will be taking you, delivering you, and then fucking themselves off.
Yeah.
Like, that's that.
She doesn't want to go back to Vaes Dothrak, obviously, and live with those terrible old women, and yet Jorah spoke it true, she knows. So Drogo had been her shield, essentially, but she says she will not leave him, and she takes his hand. I will not. And Mirri Maz Duur enters. What up,
Mermaid Dirty?
And the day's marching had left her limping and haggard, and behind her came Cotho and Hago carrying her chest.
Yeah, now, just because I think it's important to point out, this woman that's helping them and doing what she can and being fucking just shit on.
Still forced to walk.
Her feet are, like, blistered and bloody, it said.
Yeah.
Like, she's fucked up. She's an older woman. She's walking, she's hobbling, she's limping, like, she's fucked up. But we saved you. Now fucking heal him.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do shit. You've been forcing her to march for days, weeks, who knows how long. Well, less than 10 days, I would imagine, because it was 6 days ago or some shit like that.
No, this is happening the exact same time as Whispering
Exact same
Wood,
time.
Whispering Wood, too. It's
down
all
the last second.
Everything in this last
Rob
part
just
of
got the stoic look on his face.
And yeah, upon catching sight of Drogo's wound, Hago dropped the chest, and Cotho swore a foul oath. And Mirri studies Drogo and just says, the wound has festered.
The wound has festered.
This is your work, Magi, Cotho said. And then Hago punches Mirri Maz Duur right in the face,
her in the mouth,
knocking her to the ground and then kicking her where she lays.
And Cotho pulls Hago off, saying, she is not worthy of the kicks. We will stake her out front and let all men who want her have her. And when they're all done, the dogs can have her too. And then the weasels can eat her fucking eyes out. Like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, he hauls Mirri up to her feet, and Dany says, I will not have her harmed. And Cotho smiles a mocking smile. No? You say me no? Pray we do not stake you beside your Magi. You did this as much as her.
Yo. Fuck.
Yeah.
Like, he just said he's going to stake the queen, the Khaleesi.
And let her be raped
by
Khalasar, dogs.
Like,
yeah.
Fuck.
Jorah stepped between them, loosening his long sword in its scabbard. Rein in your tongue, Blood Rider. The princess is still your Khaleesi. Only while blood of my blood lives. When he dies, she is nothing.
And Dany feels a tightness in her. And she says, before I was Khaleesi, I was the blood of the dragon. And then she looks at Jorah and says, Jorah, summon my cause. Which is essentially her saying, we're coming to fuck you up, to escort you the fuck out of here.
Yeah, no, we will go. For now, Khaleesi. And Hago and Cotho exit from the tent scowling.
And Jorah pulls a Hal Mullen. They don't seem to like you, Khaleesi, is essentially what he tells her.
Yeah, that one means you no good. And she says, Sir Jorah, I may have need of your blade. Best go down your armor. She was more frightened than she dared to admit, even to herself. And he says, as you say, and he strides from the tent.
And as he leaves, Dany turns to Mirri Maz Duur, and she says, "And now you must save him."
Well, because Mirri says, "So, you have saved me once more." And Dany says, "Yes, and now you must save him, please. You do not ask a slave. You tell her."
She replied sharply.
Yeah.
And was that mocking?
Oh, yeah.
And just, you don't tell
That's
a
what
slave.
Drogo said, yeah.
And that's, I mean...
Command me, Khaleesi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Mirri asks about the poultice that she had made and says, "I had put that stuff on. What happened to that?" And Dany explains to her how it burned and itched, and so he had it taken off, and the herb woman had replaced it with the mud cast. And Mirri says, "It burned, yes. There is great healing magic in fire. Even your hairless men know that." Speaking of the eunuchs that the
Use
Khals
boiling wine
usually
to
do that.
boil infection out, corruption out, yeah.
And Dany asks, "Well, make him another poultice. I'll make sure he keeps it on this
That time is past, my lady. All I can do is ease the dark roads before him into the nightlands. He will be gone by morning." And the words were a hot knife in Dany's heart. She had finally found a safe place, was finally going home, found love and comfort, only to lose it all. "No," she pleaded. "Save him, and I will free you. I swear it. You must know a way, some magic."
So, Mirri Maz Duur here kind of rolls back onto her heels and studies Dany. And this is where the beginnings of what I'm going to kind of roll out. And again, it may have been discussed heavily by many, many people before me. If so, I'm unaware of it. I apologize for my ignorance. I think this is her deciding, I can't do shit for this bitch. I'm going to pretend like a motherfucker, though. And so I think she learned some stuff in Asshai, absolutely. I don't know that it's necessarily real magic. Just like I think there's certain levels, like kind of like Glamour with Melisandre, where I don't think that that's some high class shadow magic. I feel like that's some fairly simple trickery and, light magic that can be used. I think that's all that Mirri Maz Duur does here. That everything she's doing is just tricks and fucking with them.
Well,
and I'll explain with my evidence throughout as we go.
I think I know what you're talking about, because I agree. But she says, "There is a spell, but it is hard, lady, and dark. Some would say death is cleaner. I learned in Asshai and paid dearly for the lesson. My teacher was a blood mage from the Shadowlands." And Dany went cold all over. "Then you truly are a magi." "Am I?" Mirri smiled. "Only a magi can save your rider now, Silver Lady." And Jesus Christ with that.
So that line, because she smiles at her, "Am I?" Like, you're the one calling me that.
Yeah.
I've never named myself a magi.
No, I was a healer. I was a god's wife.
And
that's the only title Mirri Maz Duur has given her. I was god's wife at the temple.
I was taught these things, I learned this, and I know how to do this.
But the interesting thing is, when we first meet her, she learned anatomy from a Maester Marwyn. Right. Now we're getting that she also had a blood mage teacher in Asshai as well.
So now we know what's going to come out of Dany, this shadowy skin thing.
Yeah.
What do you think would have come out of Melisandre if she didn't know all the spell when she's releasing a shadow demon baby into?
I don't. That's just speculation on speculation.
Right. So somebody that doesn't have all the knowledge of the spells, or has never done it before, or only done it once with guidance, perhaps turning a regular baby into a shadow demon baby, she fucked it up. And so
to what end would she want a Renly shadow baby assassin type thing?
So maybe not a shadow baby, but trying to utilize the life force the way that spell does to create something new. Maybe she was trying to put that into Drogo to bring him to life, and it attached to Dany's.
See, I think you had the right of it earlier, where it's more smoke and mirrors.
So that's what I'm going to stick with.
Magic here, it's magic to just preserve Drogo as he is.
Right.
It's to keep him not dead.
Which is more what I still feel. I'm just kind of.
I never really picked up on it that Drogo is essentially in his catatonic state all this chapter.
Yeah.
He's staring blankly ahead. He can only answer in grunts. Like
he's done. He's
done.
Already dead.
And so it seems to me that all Mirri is doing is keeping his heart beating, while everything else is fucked up because of the infection.
Right.
There isn't a high class of magic here. So I think you're right, and the rest is smoke and mirrors. I have some things to say to that. So Dany asks, "Is there no other way?" "No other. And Drogo gasps out in pain right at this moment,
And
which
so
is
she
perfect.
Says, do it. And she was the blood of the dragon. She must not be afraid.
Yeah.
Save him, she says.
Yeah,
And
there is a
Mirri-
price.
yeah.
Mirri warns her.
Now this is again. There's going to be some here because Dany says, I have gold. You can have all the horses. It doesn't matter. Whatever you need." And she says, "This is blood magic, lady. Only death may pay for life." And Dany kind of freaks out. "Death," she says, and starts thinking on how she said she would give her life for Drogo, but is that what she's really feeling? And finally, she comes out with, "My death." "No," Mirri promised. "Not your death, Khaleesi." But that's all she says. She doesn't say whose death. And so here shortly we'll see that Dany's going to assume that means a horse's death.
Yeah.
She just takes that upon herself to assume that that's that. But Mirri Maz Duur specifically states that the horse is there to provide blood, not a life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, essentially, yeah, she's saying that your child's going to die, whether or not it's the magic of the spell, or maybe Mirri Maz Duur already could feel that happening or something.
Right.
I don't really know. She also, as Dany's sort of prepping herself up for it, she mentions that her brother Rhaegar had died for the woman he loved. And I just think that's interesting because we've gotten quite a few mentions of Rhaegar dying for the woman he loved from Daenerys, and that just basically made me think that I'm pretty sure that Dany and Viserys both know Rhaegar was in love with Lyanna. I know there's a lot of argument about it's basically what side you view the story from, because Dany obviously views Robert as a usurper and Rhaegar as in a favorable light, so it would be he's doing it for the woman he loves instead of the woman he wants to rape and kidnap. But just
the fact that she's aware.
How many stories Viserys is told, how many stories Viserys is told about his family. He's extremely proud of his family and everything. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets revealed that Dany knew Lyanna was pregnant and had just assumed that he was killed when all the other Targaryens were killed as well, along with Rhaegar's other children. And so when Jon Snow is revealed to be Rhaegar and Lyanna, she's going to be like, I heard of you, I know of you, like, my brother Rhaegar came to court, according to Viserys, and boasted all about how he was about to have another son, yada, 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 or something along those lines.
That'd be sick.
I just feel like they are aware, and it's not something that she's not just like, oh yeah, Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar, I know how significant that is to everything.
Yeah, she didn't say he died for this false woman. He died for the woman he loved. Like, she refers to him to Lyanna as that woman.
So the Magi nodded solemnly. As you speak, so it shall be done. Call your servants. And so Drogo rides feebly as Rakaro and Quoro lowered him into the bath. And Mirri commands, bring his horse. And so Drogo led the great red stallion into the tent, and when the animal caught the scent of death, it screamed and reared, taking 3 men to subdue it. What do you mean to do? Dany asks. We need the blood, Mirri answers. And so Drogo edges back with his hand on his rock, and he falls to his knees in front of Dany. Khaleesi, you must not do this thing. Let me kill this Magi. And Dany, obviously.
Yeah, he tells her this. She's like, nah, it needs to be done.
Kill her, you kill your Khal.
And he's like, it's this blood magic. It's forbidden. And she tries to throw around that weight again of the Khaleesi. Well, I'm Khaleesi, and it's no longer forbidden.
And then she tries to justify it, and she says, in Face Dothraki, Drogo slew a stallion.
I think she does.
And I ate a heart to give our son strength. This is the same. This is the same.
I think it's that in these terms.
I can't argue it.
There is no difference. They are performing a seance, a ceremony, to slay a horse and have a woman eat the horse's heart to then strengthen and show. That's
why is it any different to bathe in its blood?
They are doing the same thing. I think she justified
her justification is okay, but it's this spiral of
absolutely.
Panic. The stallion is brought over to the tub where Drogo lay like one dead already. Mirri was chanting in a tongue that Dany did not know, and a knife appeared in her hand. Dany didn't know how it got there. Old-looking hammered red bronze, leaf shape, with a blade covered in ancient glyphs.
Yeah.
Mirri slits the throat of the horse, and blood poured out in a red rush.
And she continues her chant.
Yeah, with her claws holding it up
This time speaking in common, strength of the mount go into the rider, strength of the beast go into the man. I really like the knife, first of all.
Yeah.
Leaf-shaped makes you... It almost makes me think of Children of the Forest and perhaps some magic, and then the glyphs as well make me think of the Dragonbinder horn.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there's... I think it's for show. And I think, And I think the way that she popped it out of non-existence helps to show a little bit of her sleight of hand trickery, mummery.
And we, like, that's the best part of it, is we get that from Melisandre, that before magic started actually kicking back on, that's all it was. It was potions in the fire and powders in the fire.
And that's it.
So Dany starts thinking it's only a horse. It's only a horse. And if that was the price of Drogo's life, she would gladly pay it 1,000 times over.
And I think that's funny that she's so nonchalant. And it's like, you should realize here, like, if it was that easy, don't you think everybody would be doing blood magic?
So they let the horse fall, and nothing showed of Drogo but his face in the bloody tub, and Dany tells them to burn the horse carcass as Mirri is done with it. So the men drag it out, and blood is just fucking everywhere. On the walls, the tent, the floor. It's soaking into Dany's sandals.
And this leaves 3 people in the room now.
Mirri,
4 counting
Dany, Drogo.
And Areo. Or
Oreoi. And so, here we get the most condemning evidence, I think. Yes. Mirri tosses a red powder into the brazier. It smelled sweet enough, but Iroi fled sobbing, and Dany was filled with fear.
I think that's basically
That's what it does.
It's a hallucinogen.
Yeah.
It
increases your heart rate, it gives you that fight or flight response.
And so it's going to also cause slight images and stuff like
hallucinations.
That's why Iroi took off, because she immediately got hit by that.
Yeah, she just started tripping dick, and she's like, "Oh shit!"
That now, if all it takes for Mirri Maz Duur is to throw a second brazier with flames in that tent, and the shadows are cast everywhere with just her dancing around, jumping between a couple of them, and so a ton of shadows can pop up all over the place.
And then throwing your voice, changing your voice, making it ululating is just very easy to do. Yeah, no, I think it's very showy, and
I think it's
the first time I read it, I'm like, yo,
and it got scared. I was scared. Like, it was scary.
Like, that's fucking creepy. But now I think it's in her in there just doing some shit and just dancing around, as Melisandre says. Most magic users do. I did air quotes. Most magic users do. It's all show. There's potions and powders to make men see
and
things
and this and that.
But it's all just for show. And so, Dany was filled with fear, but she had gone too far to turn back now. So she sends her handmaidens away. Go with them, Silver Lady, Mirri tells her. I will stay, Dany says. This is the man who took me under the stars and gave life to my son. I will not leave him. You must. Once I begin to sing, no one must enter this tent. My song will wake powers old and dark. The dead will dance here this night. No living man must look on them. I mean, there you go.
Stay out. Don't look behind the curtain.
Yeah. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
That's it. That's 100%.
Don't come in here and just see me fucking diddy-bopping around by myself.
I think you had asked me earlier after you finished taking notes, what did Jorah see, which we'll get at the end of the chapter, but I think we get that in Dany's next chapter, where he was like, no, I walked in and there was just some flames and she did it, and then I left and like there was lots of blood and we pulled this gross thing from you. But I'm pretty sure he says that he walks in and everything was calm and good and fine, and she was tripping.
So Dany bows her head, having no choice. No one will enter, she says, and she gives Drogo a final kiss. Bring him back to me, she tells Mirri before she fleds outside. And outside, the sun was low. Camp stretched as far as she could see. Drogo and Aggo were digging a fire pit to burn the dead horse, and a crowd had gathered to stare at Dany with hard black eyes.
Yeah.
She sees Jorah amongst the crowd, now armored, pushing his way through the Dothraki to her side, and seeing the bloody footprints her sandals left, his face drained of color. What have you done, you little fool?
Like, what have you done, you little fool?
I mean,
like he said
valid.
Hoarsely. And no, absolutely valid, but it's more shit, like for him to just drop all courtesies and then like again, I don't I don't
well,
necessarily
like,
blame him this
literally
time.
a crowd. If they know, if the Dothraki
Yeah.
were fully aware of what was happening right in there, like if they could see it, move the tent out, there'd be a riot.
It's a
like,
riot.
I mean, we already right about now are gonna get 3 people that just try to kill.
We're
Dany
going
outright.
to get a riot here, but it could have been 100 times
Jorah's
worse if they
reaction
just knew.
is like, what you are completely blaspheming all of these people.
You're doing it's as stupid as when your brother came in and drew a sword and faced Dothraki. Like
Yeah.
you are shitting on everything to do with these people.
And she just says, I had to save him. And he says, we could have fled. I would have gotten you safe to Ashai, princess. There was no need. And she asks, am I truly your princess? And he says, you know you are. God save us both. Then help me now. And he grimaced. Would that I knew how.
And then Mirri Maz Duur's voice rose to a high ululating wail, and she begins singing. And all those Dothraki people that were watching start backing away. And through the shadows, she could see the shadows reflected and cast on the tent that Mirri Maz Duur was dancing, and not alone.
Yeah, so actually, while I was reading this with my new thought that it's all for show, her voice rising to the wail, and it reminded me of like when your son Jude is in trouble and he's in timeout and he's crying about it, and like he goes for that, like, oh wait, it's been quiet and no one's paying attention,
right?
So I'm going to do a
I need
loud
to make
cry
sure,
and put
I need
on
to
the
draw
show.
the attention to people,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
so,
it.
yeah,
and
and
all
then
of a sudden there's these
shadows now dancing,
and that's it again. All it takes is for 2 braziers to be lit, 2 braziers to be lit in there to cast crazy shadows all over the place. You see it with just a single fire around a campfire with the shadows that are bouncing and flipping and
Dany
flopping.
sees the naked fear on the faces of the Dothraki. Crotho, Hago, and Koholo returned. Dany wasn't sure.
Just one more pause there. I really like George saying the naked fear on their faces in a way to say like there's no confusion, there's no bewilderment, they're just fucking scared.
Yeah,
fucking scared, and that it's just
straight
cool
up blood
way.
magic.
Yeah.
And so, Kotho, Hago, and Koholo return with the eunuchs who healed with needle, knife, and fire.
Yeah, they popped out of nowhere. Dany had no idea.
And Magi, Hago calls Dany, and Kolo, old Koholo, who had always been kind to her, whose life had been Drogo's blood rider since his birth, spat full in her face.
Man.
You will die, Magi, but not before the other. She must die first, Kotho said, drawing his Arak as he made for the tent.
Yeah, and Dany tries to hold him back and pull him, but he shoves her down to the ground. She manages to cradle her stomach before it hits, but again, getting tossed to the ground. Not good. Not good.
Stop him.
I know I'm not a doctor, but it's not good to push a pregnant woman
the
down.
Jostling of that baby.
And I mean, it's just how much damage was done before Mirri Maz Duur had anything to do with anything.
So, stop him, she cries. Kill him.
She calls to her cause.
Rakaro and Koro stood by the tent entrance. Koro took a step forward, but Kotho spun with his Arak, catching Kotho under the arm. Blood fountained as the young rider reeled back, and Kotho wrenches the blade free.
Yeah, and Jorah steps up.
Horse Lord!
Try me. And
he draws his long sword, and they go at it, and Kotho's speed seems to better Jorah pretty quickly as he's getting knocked backward, and Kotho's just shouting insults at him, calling him a coward, calling him
just all sorts of nasty,
mocking the
shit.
armor, all that shit. And Dany's son kicked wildly in her womb, followed by a sharp pain and wetness on her thighs.
Her water broke.
Yeah. And I don't know enough, because, I am not of the female persuasion, that I don't know if it's accompanied by pain when your water breaks. I don't think it's supposed to be.
I believe for the most part it really depends on the pregnancy. If you're already bad, like if there's already problems in there before the water breaks, then yes, absolutely.
But I would assume a normal pregnancy, your water just breaks.
Yeah, and again, this is just,
maybe, some discomfort and like some pressure, being like, oh yeah, something's up. Like,
but as far as I'm aware, you're correct. There's not really much.
And so
pain there.
that's probably not, because because it made me think. Obviously, I was like, oh, her water broke, but I was like, is it blood?
Well, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I think that a pregnancy and water can break due to like stress or bad things like that, and those times it can be accompanied by pain because of the way it was induced. But again, I'm not familiar enough.
So Kotho swings in and actually manages to get Jorah in the hip. and it gets deep enough to the bone, but a rock catches on the bone, and Jorah manages to cut first at his arm and then at his face, which seemed to explode from the impact. And Quotho is dead. So the Dothraki were shouting. Mirri was wailing in the tent like nothing human.
And Hago goes off fighting, and Jogo manages to wrap his whip around the throat as Ricardo comes flying in with a fucking two-handed slam with his Arax straight on top of Hago's head.
Yeah.
Splitting him right down to the eyes.
Someone chucked a rock, and Dany had noticed that her shoulder was torn and bloody, and she starts weeping. No, please stop it. The price is too high. As more stones flew.
Now, is she there referring to all the Blood Riders and the friends to die? Or now she's realizing what she caused between her baby, the
I think
blood
she,
magic.
at this point, is fully aware that her baby is dead. Like, I think it's that, like, how much pain she's now in knowing that he's coming.
Yeah, I think technically that was her shouting for Mirri Maz Duur.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
stop.
The price is too high. Everything's falling apart around me.
She's realizing it's
my
the baby.
cause just had to kill Drogo's Blood Riders. Now my baby is probably dead.
And I think that's it. She's realizing that's the life that has to be given.
And so she tried to crawl for the tent, which is sort of solidifies it for me. She's trying to make her way there to stop Mirri at this point. But Koholo grabbed her hair, pulling her head back, and a cold knife was placed at her throat, and she screams, "My baby," and thinks the gods must have heard her, because quick as that, Koholo was dead, with Ago's arrow piercing his lungs and heart. So Dany lifts her head, and she sees that the Dothraki were going back to their tents or saddling horses and riding off. The sun had set, and she tried to rise, and agony squeezed her like a giant's fist, and inside the tent, shadows whirled.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it just fucking collapses, man.
She sees all these fires burning across the Khalizar, and I think some of them are just still campfires and dinner fires, but other ones have now raged out of control because of just people trying to get the fuck out of there because there's blood magic going down. This is going to be known as a place that's cursed forever by the Dothraki. Like, this location will now be haunted forever.
Sir Jorah lifts her off of her feet, his face sticky with blood, half of his ear gone. She convulsed in his arms, and she hears him shouting.
So right before that line said, there was a part with Mirri's voice. It said the sound of Mirri's voice was like a funeral dirge. And I just thought that, it was important to pull out with the baby, with Drogo, with everything happening.
It was funny because, when I was going through, I was conscious of that, where I wanted to know everything Mirri said, but then I'm like, nah, because I'm not buying it. It's all shit. Yeah, it may sound cool, a funeral dirge. That sounds like it's mystical and magical. Nah, this bitch is full of shit.
I'm not buying it.
Me neither. Not anymore. And so, he's shouting for her handmaidens to help her. And Dany thinks, are they all so afraid? But she knew the answer.
Yeah, and so he yells at Doria to fetch the birthing women.
They will not come. They say she is accursed.
And he's like, I don't give a shit. Tell them to come or I'll have their heads. And she tells him the truth. They've all left. They were like, fuck no.
The Magi, she hears someone else say. Take her to the Magi. Was it Ago, she thinks? And no, Dany wanted to say, not that. You mustn't. What was wrong with them? Couldn't they see?
And she tries telling them not to take Mirri, but the only thing that comes out is a long wail of pain. And fuck, man, she's changed her mind. And I don't think it's that she's changed her mind at this point. It's that she doesn't want to go in there with that all going on. Yeah. She's worked herself up, convinced that it's real, that she's going to get fucked, not that she doesn't want the help to get the baby
And
born.
Inside the tent, the shadows were dancing. Some did not look human. She glimpsed the shadow of a great wolf and another like a man wreathed in flames.
Are we just getting some George Martin red herrings of Robb Stark and Stannis?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you? If you're making images for show and shit, why not a great beast of a wolf, to conjure fear and what looks like somebody burning, dancing around.
Absolutely.
To me, it's just, what are some frightful things that would...
so I think that that's what I thought, was that, these are just some scary things she's using as her show, but I feel like it's Martin using it as a red herring.
Yeah. The Starks and...
we can now look back and be like, that kind of does... to me, it was Stannis. He's going to be encompassed by the Lord of Light. And
I immediately thought quitting.
I didn't think he was going that far. I see it as Stannis because Stannis is only 10 chapters away, 9 chapters away for us, technically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny because again, fuck you, no, Mirri, fuck you.
No, I'm not buying it.
I don't believe any of it.
Yeah, so Eerie speaks up saying, "The lamb woman knew the secrets of the birthing bed. I heard her say so." And it says, "No," Dany shouted, or only thought, for no sound escaped her lips. She was being carried, eyes opening to see a flat, dead sky, black and bleak and starless. The Dothraki believe everything of significance has to happen under the open sky in view of the stars. And there's not a single star in the sky to witness this night.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking significant is that for them in this whole goddamn Dothraki?
So
it's blood magic. The gods are not going to look on this is what I'm taking that as.
Absolutely.
Like they are averting their gaze from this portion of the Dothraki Sea. As far as I would believe the Dothraki see it, they're not looking upon this because it's so abhorrent. It's so bad. This is not a moment of significance and importance. This is a moment of fucking the worst of humanity coming out.
See, I saw it as the opposite. I think that it's because they see that it's horse shit. There is no significance here. There's nothing actually out of the wild going on, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's why the stars aren't there, because this is just a bullshit show by a trickster.
Moment.
It's
Drogo is going to die.
Right. The significant moment is
die.
when the real star comes out, the comet, when her baby is, the life of that is given to the dragons. Like, that's the real significance. This is all just show and horse shit, smoke and mirrors, and it's not significant.
The sound of Mirri's voice grew louder until it filled the world. The shapes, Dany screamed. The dancers. Which the dancers just made me think of mummers.
So I also wanted to, there's a lot of stuff brought about with the different dancers in her marine chapters, as well as
the fire dancers.
And then I also thought about the dancers at her wedding in the beginning of the book here, and how there seems to be some kind of significant, but again, Mirri Maz Duur is bullshit, and so I think the dancers she's seeing are the shadows and all that.
Well, yeah, that's what she's thinking, but to me it immediately jumped to, like, mummers. It's a performance.
Yeah. And so the last line of the chapter, Ser Jorah carried her inside the tent. And so she's panicking. I think she's tripping out on some powdered stuff that was in the air, some spicy, sweet stuff.
Yep.
And she has fallen victim to this mummers show, the mummers farce.
Yeah, I think she bought it hook, line, and sinker, and now she's going to reap the benefits of that, which is, we know that the Khalasar is going to abandon her, or the men of her cause will stay by her and her handmaidens, but for the most part, they're going to abandon her and leave her with the weak and infirm, and then Drogo's going to be catatonic and dead, essentially, and she's going to lose the baby. And that could potentially be connected to her gaining some dragons.
Yeah,
not
who
too
knows?
Sure, because only death may pay for life. And so, yeah, hell of a Dany chapter.
Hell of a chapter.
Hell of a Dany chapter. Mirri Maz Duur, you red herring.
Do you have a inductee?
This one's a hard one to induct for. But, yeah, mine's going to go to Mirri. Because I mean, I say I'm not buying her shit, but I don't truly know. She could absolutely have cast some spell in there, and it failed. It went successfully. It did exactly as she wanted. It did nothing she wanted. I don't know. But I really like the mystery that George surrounded her with, because he adds a validity to her claim, I think, by
placing her in a spot where you can learn it
with a
name
with
of
a
a
name
person that's
who's
actually
significant later on in the books. And so, yeah, we trust that she does know something about something. And then the fact that she can at least make shadows appear and dance and sing in high ululating wails seems to imply that she knows some songs and some at least trickery that Melisandre straight up will tell us is the way that it's done, is people use powders and potions to fool men into thinking things are magic. And so, yeah, Mirri Maz Duur for just being that odd, is the shit she's saying true? No, probably not. Is she just a pissed off lady who was raped and watched her whole town and village burn down and everyone she ever treated and cared about? Yeah, probably that one. So I'm going to go for Mirri Maz Duur for just getting some good old-fashioned fucking revenge and setting out some, like, crazy fucking shit for it. Like, she did a whole show and presentation, and so she's going into it. So, yeah, Mirri Maz Duur. Yours?
I really want to change it now, but mine was Mirri.
Oh, was it?
And it's because to me right now, she's the greatest showman on the fucking planet, man. She's
Varys level, yo.
She fucking sold this, like, from the start. I think, again, that she genuinely was like, if I bring this guy back from the brink with just a little poultice, maybe they'll show some leniency to me and my family and the other lambs. And she gave him this poultice, and he straight up was like, no, fuck you, bitch. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to follow your instructions. And then followed through with that.
Yeah.
By pulling the shit off, having it replaced with something more comfortable. He killed himself. You're an idiot. You didn't listen, you stupid fucking idiot. And when she gets summoned back after days of marching after trying to save his life just to get this fucking, oh, you stupid, and then to get punched in the mouth for it, like, fuck you guys. So yeah, I can absolutely believe it, and I do believe it. After the reread, looking through this shit, it just seems so obvious to me that she's like, no.
The brilliance of it is, like, if we question, because, you know, you go into this book, like, you're like, yeah, this is a fantasy novel. Like, there's a big wall made of ice. There's beings made of ice walking around. So, like, why wouldn't there be some crazy mage lady who's, like,
don't question.
And then, like, but when you read the book, you learn you need to question fucking everything. There are unreliable narrators. Like, the people whose perspective we're reading it from are getting information wrong about themselves and things they've did. They're misremembering. So we need to be the ones to look through it, not these characters, and trust them to do it. And when you do that, Mirri's shit doesn't hold up at all.
And that's why, like, but at the same time, it can.
It can.
And so I'm calling her bullshit, but I think for that reason, I'm inducting her for being just the greatest showman here.
Yeah.
She pulled this stunt off beautifully.
Yeah, whichever way it went with her, whether it was an actual spell or just a performance. Yeah, I agree. So, double Mirri inductee for us two. We also got some great correspondence. We got one from our friend in France, Julian. And Julian says, another one of those Daenerys chapters that I don't really like reading. I am truly sorry.
I really think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is a very tough chapter. A lot of underlying stuff that you take at face value, everything that we just talked about, where it seems like she's just doing some magic, whatever, this is boring Dany bitching and Drogo dying, and I don't like that guy. But when you start looking at it with all these underlying meanings, I think it'll help pop it out a little bit more to you.
Yeah. So anyway. He says, again, I'm sorry, but Jorah is going to be my inductee because that Craven in an iron suit still managed to cut through Quotho. That couldn't have been an easy task. And it wasn't. He took his lumps.
Then he got fucked up for it.
He says, so creepy uncle wins. Oh, and by the way, R.I.P. Drogo. Should have kept the Band-Aid with the little tear emoji. Valor to Harris. Thank you, Julian.
Thanks,
that was
Julian.
a great inductee. Sorry you didn't like it. Write us in and let us know why, specifically, if you didn't like that.
Well, just because he did mention that he doesn't like Dany chapters to begin with, which is, man, I hate to say it, but it's going to get it worse for you, because these are some of her best chapters in the series, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for your write-in. We have some more inductees from the Not So Silent Sisters.
Silent.
And so they start with, he was a fire in human skin. Oh, bring on the waterworks. Unsept Afton and I were having a chat about this chapter while enjoying some spirits, and although we may not agree with the decisions that she made, we don't fault Dany for any of it. I agree with that.
I agree.
That's fine.
Yeah, no.
It's interesting because we are, admittedly, quite critical of the female characters, but she's different. We concluded that it has everything to do with how alone she is. Growing up, she only ever had her shit-stained brother Viserys and was dropped into a world she didn't know, with a language she didn't understand, but still carried on with admirable strength. Not to mention the fact that she's a pregnant child bride. It's hard to pinpoint because we see so many characters go through unspeakable tragedies, but her story, at least to us, is the most heartbreaking. Just when she's finally starting to feel like she's found a home, it's taken away from her. Of course, having already read the series at least once, we know all this was necessary for her to transform into the person she was destined to be, but shit, she's just a scared little girl and it's painful to read. One thing I noticed during this reread is how even though she's clearly distraught and displaying emotion, she's already starting to disassociate. If you pay close attention, you notice she doesn't always call people by their names when she's thinking. She calls her handmaids the slaves, Drogo her lord husband, or the Khal, and Jorah is the knight. Also, when she's looking at the tent and sees the shadows of a wolf and a man wreathed in flames, it seems like a reference to Jon, Ghost, and the White he fought. Yo, You just laid some facts on me right there. I didn't think, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. I didn't even think of that shit. It does. You are absolutely correct. So I did want to touch on the dissociating people with calling her slaves, her handmaids slaves and stuff, because Zach and I have mentioned the handmaids and slaves one, but I didn't put that connection together. She does that with everybody, and you're right. She absolutely does call, and that's throughout a lot of the chapters.
The disassociation, I actually had a note on it, and I didn't bring it up, and I don't know why, because I wanted to bring it up in conjunction to Catelyn, who also, in our last chapter, began disassociating with Jaime Lannister.
Right.
And it's an odd comparison where Catelyn and Dany don't really get compared much, but
which I think is neat.
They both kind of have that turn into.
We had Dany compared a bit to Sansa with the naivety at first, but she was forced to mature quickly.
Already,
so now we're already comparing her to the mother, the matron of the series so far, and so she hasn't even become the mother of dragons yet, which is what the mothership she'll be known for is. But she's already starting to have some of those qualities that Cat, the mother, has.
So for this chapter, Unsepta Brandy will be inducting Ser Jorah to the Sisterhood. He may be a fucking creep, but there's no doubt that he saved Dany's life in this chapter. Despite the chaotic upheaval surrounding them, he's able to keep a rational mindset. This is probably the only time in the series when I can actually admire Jorah, so I'll savor it while I can.
Yep.
Valid.
We've definitely gotten a Jorah in because of the same reasons.
I think the last Dany chapter was Jorah for me.
Yeah, because he becomes such a fucking awkward creeper that it's just hard to like him throughout some of the rest of the series, but agreed. Unsepta Afton has no inductee.
Oh, shit.
As I feel no one in this chapter is worthy of becoming part of the Sisterhood. Dany is maddeningly stupid. Drogo literally has no idea what's going on. True, but a coma will do that to you. The Blood Riders and other Dothraki only want to fight and kill with their stabby sticks. Curved stabby sticks.
True.
Dany's handmaids are a bunch of cowards, and Mirri Maz Duur is a psycho witch woman. I think she's a psycho show woman, but I can understand that. Jorah could be inducted, but for what? Doing what he's supposed to do? Making sure Dany survives? None are worthy. That's it. Why are we rewarding people for doing what they're expected to do anyway? Get the fuck out of here,
know what,
Jorah.
Unsepta Afton, your inductee can be you this week for that inductee, because I think that's fucking brilliant. I love it so much.
As always, all men must die, but we are not men. The Not So Silent Sisters.
God damn.
Great fucking points.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Not So Silent Sisters. Julian, thank you guys for writing in. Those were great.
We always love the points of
God
discussion.
damn, I really enjoyed this chapter, but we are running a little bit long here, so we're going to quickly bust out our socials. If you liked the Not So Silent Sister and Julian inductions, you can send in your own, and we will read them out here gladly.
And you can find us on all the socials. Without Manners Brotherhood at gmail.com is the most common way to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
The Instagram is at Manners Without. I'm on Twitter at Manners Without. Zach is on Twitter at Carstark92. That's Carstark with a C and 2 R's, not a K-A-R. And we're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Brotherhood Podcast. We have our Patreon where we put out currently the sample chapters from Winds of Winter, where we do the same thing we do with these chapters, just for the future ones. If you want some very most current stuff relating to the full series at the end.
That are actually subject to change and
very much
editing in the final book.
So let us go to the Patreon, give us a couple dollars, helps us. It all goes back right into the podcast.
Any rate and reviews you guys can give us are always appreciated.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, any of that. Next episode, we're reading Arya. I don't know what 5.
Arya 5.
And it's Ned's last chapter at all. He's dead.
Arya's last chapter of the book.
And this is Arya's last chapter of the book.
So yeah, we'll be reading Ned Stark's death and Arya's last chapter. After Arya 5, we will be reading Bran.
Which is his last
Bran
chapter.
7, which is his last. That'll be him having some visions of the Crypts of Winterfell and the news of King's Landing.
Dead. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're in the final 8 chapters.
Yeah, so with Arya, that makes 8 chapters left of the book, and we're really coming down to the end here.
God damn it, I'm so excited.
Yeah, these have just been some friggin' smack you in the face chapters so far, just one after the next.
Bloody hell, Harry.
So let us know what you guys think. We can't wait to hear from you, and we look forward to joining you on the next one.
Valar Daenerys.
Peace.